There it is. Well, hello, good morning. Good morning, everybody. This will be a recording about problem-based learning. It's a way of learning we use a lot in the Netherlands and also in other countries. It's a new development of and a way of learning that is really beneficial for the student. We are Carolina Gattorno. She is one of my students in the course of Business Management and Agriculture and Food. And I'm Peter van Gastel. I'm a professor in Management, Marketing and Innovation, and also a lot involved in educational development. So that's our background. And we're going to explain more in this lecture about problem-based learning. And we will do that together because Carolina has done it by herself as a student 2 years ago. And so we thought it was pretty nice to do it together like that. We are both connected to the Haas University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands. So if you have any questions, you can always find me via the website of Haas University, and I'm really happy to help you. We make this recording also for other users, and one of the users is going to be the Farmers Association in Georgia. And if you have questions or trouble to contact us, you can always get in touch with the Farmers Association in Georgia too, and they will help you with your questions or get us in touch. Well, Carolina, ready to go?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, let's get started. Oh, I should make the start too. Yeah, here we go. Now, first about problem-based learning. In problem-based learning, it's an approach where we work in small groups of students. Normally, it's about 8 students that can do this together. It's not only group work, but it's also individual tasks. And what normally is the rhythm of problem-based learning. The students and the tutor come together, say once a week to start or once in 2 weeks to start off the problem-based learning cycle. And on the end, they come together again to discuss the results. And we do this kind of learning because in this way, students get involved a lot more in what they are learning, and they feel also more the owner of their learning process. And the fun thing is also that students develop a lot more skills than just by reading or studying a book about the subject. The next 15 minutes we're going to explain for how we do the problem-based learning, and on the end we will come back to the question for what do you learn in problem-based learning except next to the theory, and how to use that later. I think now it's time for Carolina.
Yeah. All right. So, as Peter mentioned, I'm a student at Haas University in the program Business Management and Agriculture, and essentially I'll just be running through some of the steps and the process of undergoing a PBL case, and perhaps providing a little bit of my experience in doing so. So the PBL works in a set of 10 different steps. You usually work around a case. It's usually a real-life case that gets provided to you. And these cases center around a real issue that occurs kind of as a testimony of a problem. And after reading that case, you kind of work from there. So the first step usually is reading through the case, clarifying different terms, and then defining what the main issue is. So you do this usually in, first and foremost in a group by reading it, but the first step is clarifying the difficult terms for yourself and defining the main issue for yourself. After that, you will come together in a group in your first session, in your opening session of the PBL, what we refer to as a kickoff meeting. And in this meeting,
and the case, the subject can be almost anything. And if the course is about marketing, it will be a marketing case. If it is about business economics, it will be about that. But it can also be about feeding cows, and then the subject will be about digestion of the cow or whatever is relevant to discuss. Yeah, so many choices. Yeah, you can choose the subject in the case next to that, and the way we do it at Haas University, that is especially for first year students, we make it normally a not too just difficult enough case. Yeah, so
Right.
it must be difficult enough to be busy with it for a couple of days, but not too complicated. So it will be has to be inviting to. Yeah.
Right.
Here you go.
Yeah, and so something that maybe isn't clear that I could explain is when we refer to you figure out what the issue is, essentially what PBL tries to do is that students become better at identifying problems and then finding the solutions for themselves. So the cases themselves don't pose any questions. It's really just reading a problem and then figuring out, first and foremost, how do you come up with what the main problem is and then figuring out the solutions from there. So defining the issue is just as important as finding the solution for it. So once you identify the problem and you clarify any unclear terms or terminology, you move on to brainstorming and analyzing the problem. And the manner in which this is done in a PBL setting is by creating a word web. That's what is used in PBL cases. And essentially, what you do is you kind of mind map the problem and figure out how can we connect these different terms together to kind of create the overlap of what the issue is. And in doing so, you start forming sub-questions and you start branching out the problem into different ways in order to solve the main issue. So yeah, that's the main step in the kickoff meeting. And from there, you divert into your own individual study. So you first do this.
For 1 second?
Yeah, of course.
Because you have, of course, the group of students and you have the tutor. And the trick with and the most difficult thing for a tutor, especially if he's a professor, is to keep your mouth shut as long as possible. Because as long as the students can solve the problem, you are not supposed to say anything, and just stay with the group and be connected, but don't help them only if it is really, really necessary or if they lose their way. And it's not so easy to do that, but yeah, it's if you interfere too early or too quickly, it will just hinder the learning of the students and the group dynamics. And before you know, you're back in the situation that you are lecturing and the students are listening and nothing like Carolina is doing now. And you know, nothing happens inside the head of Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just
and
you
also get used to waiting for the lecturer to intervene. So I think it's something like that's very different when it comes to PBL, is that you don't have the expectation to the right answers just coming from your lecturer, but that you also have the confidence to feel good about what opinions you created and what connections you made. So yeah. So yeah, those are the different steps to the kickoff meeting, the first meeting that occurs in groups. And yeah, after that kickoff meeting, as I mentioned, you will split up into individuals study. Each member of the group will then try and find these answers to themselves based on the questions that were formulated in the opening meeting, and they do an individual study. And after that individual study, the second session of the PBL takes place, what is called the closure meeting. And in this meeting, you finally get together and discuss all the different answers that were developed in the individual studies. You come together, you discuss what each of the answers are to the questions that were formulated, and you also just evaluate each other and you talk about the case, what you learned from it, what the process was for each student, and you just reflect on it essentially. And that's how the meeting gets closed once all the questions are answered. So.
And also in the with the closure of the meeting for the tutor, for the teacher, it's also here In the first time, maybe you have to help a little bit, but normally the students find a way, and you just confirm their behavior. You know, if they do well, you're just happy they do well, and if not so well, you can interfere here. But also here, the trick is to leave it to the students as much as you can. And often it's a lot more effective if you ask the other students if one of the students didn't do anything or didn't have anything to add, especially if this is the second time. That has to be discussed in the evaluation of the process, but preferably also via the students. So also here, the more the students can do by themselves and together, then it's better for the for the dynamics of the group. And so it's a very modest role for for a professor, and but I think the learning and of the students and their skill development comes first. Yeah. And now the different roles, Carolina.
Yeah. So in all PBL cases, you will divide different roles for the groups. And these include a chairman, a board writer, a secretary / minute maker, the people who participate, the group members, and of course the tutor. So starting off with the chairman, this is the student who will ensure that the meeting flows and that everyone keeps track of what they're doing, that he makes sure that everyone is completing their role. And usually this person is in charge of deciding whether to move on from a topic, whether to perhaps explain something a little bit more. He makes sure that every student has the opportunity to share their learning and their opinion. So it's essentially the manager, so to speak, of the meeting. Then from there you have the board writer. So the board writer essentially is in charge of developing the mind map in the first meeting. They try and just structure all the relevant information that comes up in the opening meeting, and that usually turns into the mind map that I discussed earlier. Then you have also the minute maker, and this is just the person in charge of taking minutes for the meeting, so explaining everything that occurred in the starting meeting. And then you have group members, which are just the individual students which form part of the PBL case and share their experiences, problem solve together, work together in a group. And then the tutor, which is the lecturer or teacher that's developing the case alongside students. Mm-hmm. So those are the different roles.
Yeah, I got a question, Carolina. These are the different roles, but there's one thing that everybody has to do in both meetings, and it's not so explicit here, and but it's one of the main things you can practice in this problem-based learning. Can you guess what I'm?
Feedback or
giving feedback is one, and the other one is
reflection or.
Will come a little bit later, not the first time.
I don't know.
Asking questions.
Asking questions.
Yeah, so it's where you start with in the first meeting. Carolina mentioned it already, but it's not so explicit in the whole story up till now. But the trick, of course, is to ask and to clarify things, to get things clear for yourself, and also to analyze the problem. But also on the end, if all the information is present, also everybody has to ask questions, and that's also where, as a tutor, you can intervene and help to steer the process a little bit, because if people are sitting there not asking any questions, and then you can also make an appointment and say for you, next time you are the one who's going to ask the questions, because questioning is it's also a form of active learning and good skill to train in this problem-based learning. Some students do it easily, some have to be stimulated a little bit or rewarded if they do.
Yeah, perhaps it's good to mention also that the roles change every meeting. Every time you have a new PBL case, you are pushed essentially to take up different roles so that students don't feel comfortable in just doing the role that feels right for them, but that they are also challenged to, for example, if you're uncomfortable taking lead, that you take a chairman position, or if you're not so good with following up on minutes, and maybe it's a good way to start developing organization. So yeah, it encourages you to work on different qualities and skill sets. Yeah.
Okay. There's more coming with the general agreements.
Yeah, so these were the main things we wanted to discuss, give an overview of what the actual steps of PBL are. This is the manual which is followed when developing PBL cases, and then also just giving a brief description of the different roles. Something else maybe to discuss is the benefits or the experiences.
Yeah, you can tell, I think, about your own experience. Yeah, what you learned and how you use it now. Yeah.
Okay, I think the most significant thing for me personally when it came to learning about, or learning through PBL rather, was the introduction to real life problems. So I think for the longest time in education, you really revolve around straightforward answers and problems and solutions which are laid out in a textbook in a very clear manner. So you have examples which you follow, and you think that those are going to be perfectly implemented into real life situations. And through working with PBL, I got comfortable with understanding that sometimes problems and solutions aren't a perfect fix. That there's a middle ground that's a bit more gray when it comes to working with real life problems. That it's not as simple as like, this is the problem and this is the solution, but you have to know how to work around it sometimes or think about it in a different way. So yeah, I think PBL for me was just about getting comfortable with not having straightforward answers sometimes, with becoming comfortable with problem solving and engaging with problems in that way. So I think that was the most important thing. And also communication skills, working in a group setting, learning how to shift in these different roles and develop different skills through them. And organization as well, because you have to, you have very clear tasks to follow. You have to make sure that you meet the expectations of the group. So I think, those would be some of the experiences for me.
Yeah, it was also nice for because a lot of people, some people flourish in group work, and some also need some time on their own to study and to learn. Is that and this is a nice combination. And you do things together to get started and to close off, but there's also time in between, and that you look up information and study and prepare yourself for the next meeting again. Very important from the teacher's perspective, or from the educational perspective, is that you take care that there's development in the problem-based learning with the complexity of the cases you're using, and the way you do the problem-based learning. At Haas University, first year we do problem-based learning with cases from that are just written by or a picture, or it can be anything. And you have there is also one case about, I don't know if you use that also with greenhouse, where you have to think about what is all needed to control and to organize the greenhouse for heating and cooling and everything involved. Yeah. And it's just a picture. So it can be some text, can be a picture, can be a graph to start from. And the funny thing is that if you do it like that, students are stimulated also to use their imagination and to find the information by themselves, and they enjoy that a lot. Next thing we do at our university is, for the year afterwards, we go on with projects. And main difference is that in projects we work with real life problems, and where the students can look for a nice solution. And we do that in business management. We always do that in this course. We do that with practical problems from real companies. And we ask entrepreneurs if they have a question or a problem or something interesting to find out. that is connected to the course again. It can be about marketing, or it can be about business analysis or whatever. And then, it's a team job to solve the problem and to do the research, to write the report, to present the results again. And the problem-based learning phase in year 1 is a very good preparation for that also. So to conclude is what we see happening and what Carolina as a student experienced is that the problem-based learning is a good way of learning, to learn about the subject, to learn about the theory, but also to practice your soft skills in cooperation, in meetings, in writing, in looking up information, a long list of soft skills you're just discovering with yourself, because this kind of teaching is not used at secondary school in most countries. And and here we do that, and students learn in that way. And then it's not finished with the project year 2, of course, because afterwards we have internships and the job after university, and also there it's a good preparation, different from lectures or doing an assignment and or doing some research on your own, because the combination of individual work and group work is something you will meet many times afterwards in professional life and maybe also in social life. Yeah. Did I forget anything, Carolina? Something to add?
I don't think so. I mean, I can add a bit more of the benefits, I think, for myself.
Yeah, you can.
I think another important thing was figuring out how to find relevant information and good sources, because you had to come up with the problem yourself. You also have to figure out how to solve the question, and in doing that, you really have to figure out, okay, am I actually reading from a reliable source? Is this actually going to provide me with the right information for this question? So I think it also starts building good skills to problem solve and research. And
Also there. Yeah.
I don't know if you maybe wanted to include some kind of manual or.
Yeah, the manual is available anyways.
Okay.
I will send it to my colleagues of the Farmers Association in Georgia. But you can also obtain it via me at Haas University. It's free information, and everybody is free to use it. And if you are interested to know more about this way of education, you can also contact me or just ask for the manual. Always free to. We'll be happy to help you. Now, this is the end of this introduction in problem-based learning. Thank you, Caroline, for helping me and explaining about your experiences, and I had to make this for sure a more joyful and interesting presentation than I would do it on my own. So, bye-bye, take care, and we'll meet again.
All right, thank you.